Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is your brother Ali Bhatti. I hope you teenagers are doing well. This is the teenage session for Itikaf. I wanted to start off by saying a disclaimer. This is PG-13. We're going to be discussing some Jinn stories. We're going to be talking about some things that are definitely going to be scary. I don't recommend children under the age of 13 hanging out. So parents, if you're here listening, this is probably a good time to take your kids out and kind of remove them, take them to the bedroom. Teenagers, if you're watching on your phones, maybe go to your bedroom or something like that. So the children, that are younger, they don't hear. This is definitely a more of a mature topic. I'm not going to say anything inappropriate, but it's going to be on the scary tip. So, Bismillah, we'll begin. I'll begin by talking a little bit about an introduction. So hopefully during the introduction time, it gives time for some of the children to leave before we jump into the Jinn stories. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Jinn are a creation from Allah that are made from smokeless fire. They have a fiery nature. Human beings are a creation that we're made essentially from clay, and we have a earthly nature. Jinn and human beings will be judged in the Day of Judgment, and we'll go to the hellfire or we'll go to the Jannah. Jinn are like human beings in many, many ways. They have families, they got kids, they get married, they have religions. There's Christian jinn, there's actually Jewish jinn, and there's Muslim jinn. The movie Aladdin has a genie, and Aladdin's real name is Allahuddin, and the genie's real name is Jinni, meaning it's an actual jinn in the real movie, right? In the concept of Aladdin. So what are these jinns? What are they up to? What are they doing? Where are they? They're all around us. In fact, every single person is assigned a jinn, a bad jinn, a demon, a shaitan from the leader of the shayateen, Iblis. Every human being is assigned when they're born a jinn that stays with you for your entire life. In fact, the Sahaba were so shocked. They said, "Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even you, do you have a jinn that was assigned to you?" And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam smiled, and he said, "Yes, even me, but my jinn became Muslim." It's true. Some of these jinn, they're hanging out with you. Imagine you're reading Quran, you're going to the masjid, things like that. They're listening to the Quran for the first time, and some of them actually convert to Islam. La ilaha illallah. So the jinn are an entity just like us. They live, they marry, they have lives, they die. The good jinn, the Muslim jinn, and the righteous jinn, they stay away from human beings because they're not supposed to interact with us. The majority of the jinn, however, are shayateen, are demons. They're evil. And because they're evil, they are stuck on this idea of trying to bring human beings into the hellfire because their leader, Iblis, is extremely angry, envious, and jealous of human beings. Prophet Adam alayhi salam and of us. And he's trying to prove a point that they're better than us. Because Allah created them with fire, and they're fiery and gassy, and they can move so fast and quick. They're extremely strong, and we're just made out of clay. So they have a bone to pick, and they're constantly trying to put us down and make us enter the hellfire. So Allah has given Iblis, the king of the shayateen, the life until the end of time. But all the other jinn, they're not like Iblis. They're going to live, they're going to die. Some of them will convert, some of them will remain, part of the army of the shayateen. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Now, before I get into the jinn stories, it's important to understand why we're even going to talk about jinns. Some of the parents listening are like, why is he going to tell my kids jinn stories? Then they're going to get scared and they won't be able to go to sleep at night, right? The purpose is to actually increase our iman. We believe in the unseen. We believe in the angels. We believe in Allah and the angels and His books and His messengers. And we believe in jinns. The jinns are here. In the Quran, there's a surah called Suratul Jinn, where it talks about a group of jinn that actually converted to Islam. They heard the Prophet ﷺ and they converted to Islam. So I'm actually going to start off by talking a little bit about a group of jinn that became Muslim, and it's connected to a Sahaba that's a very interesting Sahaba. Interesting because he was Christian, he became Muslim, and eventually he met the Dajjal. But I'm not going to get into that story. That could be a story for another day, inshallah. Tamim Adari was a Christian Arab who essentially became a priest, and he would go on journeys and whatnot, and he would teach people and learn and things like that. So one time he was going on a journey and he went into a valley and he was all alone, and he felt very, very scared, and he felt the presence of jinn. So in that state, he remembered that the Arabs and the non-Muslims and the non-Christians, they would actually seek refuge in the chief of the jinn. So even though he knew that that's kind of messed up, that's shirk and things like that, he was so scared he just said that. So he called out and he said, I seek refuge in the chief of the jinn of the mountain. And shortly around that time, he heard a voice speak to him. And the voice, imagine that's pretty freaky. You can't see this, but this really scary, raspy voice is speaking to you. And it said, do not seek refuge in us, seek refuge in Allah. And the man was shocked. He was like, huh? And it said it like 2 or 3 times. And then the jinn said that jinn, he said, I'm part of a group of jinn that converted to Islam. You should go, and the unlettered prophet has come out in Mecca. You should go to him, essentially. So Tamim Adari goes and tells the other monks about this, the other Christians, and the Christian leadership there tells them that, it's time for the emergence of the last prophet. So, and he's going to be in the Mecca Medina area. So Tamim Adari, then he goes. He actually sets sail and they go. And it's on that journey that they actually meet the Dajjal. They get trapped in an island and they meet the Dajjal. It's an amazing story. I'm not going to get into it right now. It's super cool, but it's not related to the jinn. But eventually they get to the Prophet and he tells them the story. And it's amazing because what happened? This guy, he got dawah from a jinn, right? And he became Muslim because of a Muslim jinn. I'll tell you another story. It's amazing. There was some righteous people that all woke up one time, and I forgot if it was in Syria or Yemen, or it was in one of the Arab lands. And apparently, Allahu Alam if it's true, but apparently they woke up, and each one of them found a letter on their bed saying that come to pray the janazah prayer for the last jinn Sahaba passed away. So it's amazing. That kind of shows you, and they all got the letter, so they all met up together and like Ajib, and they went and they prayed the janazah prayer. That just shows you that some of the jinn, they have very long lives, right? Like that's like 1400 years ago, and that jinn, who knows how long that jinn lived for. Now, we'll get into the jinn stories, and I'm just going to say a few. Again, if there's any kids still here lurking, I highly recommend that you leave because it's going to get a little bit scary. All right. So, La ilaha illallah. And we begin by saying, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. And I'm going to say this at the end, and I'll say this at the beginning. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that it's very easy. You're seeking protection in Allah from the cursed shaitan. And when you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, that most of the shayateen and the jinn, they run away, right? If you say Allah, the shayateen and the jinn, generally speaking, they run away. There are strong shayateen and jinn, and they're called isfrit. Not all jinns are the same. Just like not all angels are the same, not all jinns are the same. There are isfrit. In the Quran, it talks about, in the story of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, he has control over the jinn, and he asks which of you jinn can go and transport the entire palace, the throne of Sheba, here to my kingdom. And one of them says, like I can do it in like a day, half a day, like different timings and stuff. And one of them, the strongest, which was an Isfrit, said, I can bring it to you in the blink of an eye. So literally, you blink your eye, and there it was. It went there, it took the whole thing, and it brought it back. So, La ilaha illallah, we'll get into some of the jinn stories, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala nuri wa ala. Jinns are different than ghosts. Jinns are real, ghosts are not. People are like, oh, snap. If somebody dies, will their ghost come and haunt you? No, not at all. Not at all. Okay? When somebody dies, their soul is in the barzakh. Okay? If they are a evil soul, they're essentially in prison. They're imprisoned in the barzakh and in the punishment of the grave. Majority of the souls can't leave their grave. Now the righteous, pious shuhada and certain of the awliya of the souls in the barzakh, they've been permitted to go to certain places. For example, we know that the shuhada have been placed into green birds and they've been able to roam the heavens, right? And they're able to go underneath the arsh, things like that. So certain souls can leave. But this whole idea of like, oh, something's haunted, like there's a haunted house and there are ghosts in there, none of that. There could be jinn in an abandoned house, because jinn live in abandoned houses, graveyards, areas of deserts, oceans. The shaitan put his throne on the ocean because he's trying to mimic Allah. Allah has a throne on water. Shaitan put his throne on the ocean. Some people, in speculation, they say, they think maybe Shaitan has put his throne in the Bermuda Triangle, because there's reports of people bringing their boats and things, and they see demonic things and stuff in there. Allahu Alam, we don't know. La ilaha illallah. But jinn are completely different. They're not ghosts. They're real. They could take the form of people. They could take the form of black snakes. They could take the form of cats, dogs, things like that. It's said that if there's hadith about if you hear the braying of the donkeys or barking of dogs, things like that, at nighttime you say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So, La ilaha illallah. There's a few stories that I'll mention. And one of them is a kind of a heartwarming, nice story. It's a little spooky, but it's a really nice story. It's about Eid. So a very good friend of mine who's a student of knowledge, who I consider is like a wali of God, he was looking for the moon in California. I'm from California. So he's looking for the moon in California on the night before Eid. And on the way up, him and his buddy, they're driving in a car. And on the way up the mountain in California, they notice very few people. Some jogger, some other people. They get to the top of the mountain. There's like a few cars parked and stuff, and the cars leave. They're looking for the moon. They see the moon. They're like, Allahu Akbar! It's Eid Mubarak. They're hugging each other and everything. And they jump in the car and they're like, oh snap! They're about to close the gates of the park, the mountain. They're going to close it at sunset. So we got to smash. So they're smashing down, going really fast down. And as they're going down, they notice a hitchhiker. So they're like, my friend's like, I don't know if we should pick him up. But, we're just finishing Ramadan. We should get some good deeds. So they stop. And they're like, can we help you? And she's like, yeah, I kind of got lost a little bit. Can I get a ride to the bottom of the mountain? So my friend's like, yeah, sure. So she hops on in the back. He didn't look at her face or anything, but he noticed her feet. Her feet were very strange. And her feet were very, very clean. And she was wearing flip-flops. Everything else was kind of like disheveled, a little dirty. She looked like dusty. She was in the forest or something. So, and they didn't look, my friend didn't look at her face or anything. So now they're rolling down. And as they're rolling down, my friend is talking to the girl, and the girl's like, so what were you doing there? And my friend's like, oh, we're Muslim. We're looking for the moon because of Eid. And then my friend looks in the rear view mirror and notices it's not a woman and it's not a man. It's a hermaphrodite. Like, you know, some people, they're born half man, half woman. Like, you see the beard, but it's a woman. You know what I mean? So, so hermaphrodite. So my friend's like, you know, so what were you doing on the mountain? And she goes, oh, I was looking for a fox. My friend's like, okay, why? And she's like, well, I was looking for a fox because I was locked up in a fox's hole for a while. So I was looking for a fox, and I couldn't find the fox. I found the fox's dinner. My friend's like, what? And Alhamdulillah really kind of shook him, and they were at the bottom now, and they stopped, and this hermaphrodite gets out of the car and goes, thank you so much, assalamu alaikum, and leaves. And my friend's like, what was that all about, right? So anyways, my friend later on, he gets home, and he pulls up at the car. He goes home, and his dad's like, something really scary happened while you were gone in the mountain. Come in the backyard, look what's in the backyard. So my friend goes in the backyard, and I kid you not, there's a dead fox in the backyard. Now, you know, my friend, he's a student of knowledge and stuff like that, and he was curious, and he looked it up. It turned out that in native Indian tradition and in Chinese tradition, the devil comes in the form of a fox. And in Muslim tradition, some of the scholars, they've encountered the shaitan in the form of a hermaphrodite. Now, how could that be a shaitan? Wasn't it Ramadan? Well, they saw the moon, Maghrib came in, and who is released on the night of Eid? The shaitan. The shayateen that are locked up, they're released on the night of Eid. And what was she saying? What was that jinn saying? I was locked up in a fox's hole for a while, and now it's released. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So it's not really a scary story. It's kind of like a heartwarming story. I don't want to really tell very scary stories because I'm not trying to give you guys nightmares. And I really don't know the ages of the people that are listening. I know I've been talking kind of long. La ilaha illallah, you know. But I will tell you that the shayateen are real. And I'll tell you a personal story that happened to me. This also, it's not too scary. Again, I don't want to freak you out. I'm not trying to go into jinn possession stories and things like that. But my brother, my younger brother, and we were going to go for a Muslim conference when we were young. And, you know, they say when you're young, sometimes you're kind of young and dumb. So I wanted to scare my brother. So it's like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. We're waiting for our buddies to come pick us up. And my brother, you know, I just wanted to scare him. So I was telling him, I was like, hey, man, want me to call upon the jinn? And my brother's like, don't do that, man. Don't mess around with that stuff. So I start jumping up and down, just fooling around, you know, messing with him. And I start calling the jinn. I'm like, jinn, 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 come to us, jinn, right? Stupid things like that. Stuff that you should never do. And while I'm doing that, our house lights start to go on and off, okay? So I was like, what? Right? That's weird. So I figured it's my parents messing with me, so I quickly opened the door. There's nobody's there. My parents aren't there. They're all asleep. I'm like, okay, that's weird. So then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to scare my brother even more. So I go to my brother and I tell him, you know, it's the jinn, man. They're putting the lights on and off. So now I'm going to go call the jinn at the house across the street. So then I go to the house across the street, and I'm jumping up and down doing the same thing. Really dumb, right? Jinn, 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 come to me, right? Like, just kind of like yelling at it, just freaking my brother out, my little brother. And he looks up, I look up, right? And I'm like, what's he looking at? I turn around and I look in the house, and there's this old freaky woman looking at me from the window. So I'm like, what? So then, like, I kind of run over and I'm like, what was that? And later on, I went and I asked my neighbor, like, did you have an aunt over or a grandma over? Was there any old woman at your house? And my neighbor's like, nah, like, there's no old woman. Allah alam. So, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. We're not supposed to be messing with the jinn. A friend of mine who thought it was funny actually decided to do things that are haram, to call upon the jinn through magic and things like that. And he didn't believe in it. He would mess around with it, and our teachers would tell him not to do this. And he kept doing it to the point where he started doing weird magic tricks, right, that are essentially impossible to perform. David Blaine type stuff. And honestly, I think David Blaine uses jinn. So he was doing crazy stuff like that. And then he came to me, he told me, he's like, you know what? I believe in the jinn now. And shortly after that, he went crazy. He actually mentally went crazy. Because, and Allahu Alam, what he did, what he messed with, but you're not supposed to mess with them. You're not supposed to call them. We're not supposed to bring them into our realm. We keep them away and whatnot. So, there's a lot of other stories that I could tell that are very scary, that are definitely for the older teenagers that, I could easily tell to a group. Maybe Brother Hadas could have me over one time at NBIC, and a group of the older brothers, I could tell them stories. But La ilaha illallah, I don't want to freak people out. I'll tell you one story, Yani, that is kind of scary, but it's still a little PG-13, and I'll end with that. I used to, in Ramadan, I would take a very large group of Muslims, youth, to the cemetery at night. And there's a difference, there's ikhtilaf over whether you could visit the cemeteries at night, but there's opinions that allow for it. So I took a group of young teenagers and college students to the cemetery. Long story short, we rolled there, we got there, must have been around 2 o'clock in the morning. And while we were there, there were people that heard laughter of girls, and I heard it myself. And then the laughter turned into dogs approaching us, and I didn't see the dogs, but I heard the barking, and everybody heard it. And we all spread, and I have this thing where I spread out the youth in the cemetery because I want them all to reflect upon death, right? So we all spread out, and you have young people basically lying next to the graves reflecting upon death. And we do this exercise where I go and I grab them and I shake them and I ask them what the 3 questions are. It's a really good thing that we do with college students and stuff like that. And a lot of people, it shakes you up, but it also makes you think of death. So one of the kids, he was really young, man. He must have been like 9, 10 years old. I mean, I don't know. He was a young kid. I don't even know why he was there. This Syrian kid. The Syrian kid comes to me and he's got like this he's a kid, right? So he's like, Brother Ali, I'm going to go and check out the cemetery. I got my flashlight. I'm like, don't go too far. And he comes back. He's like, Brother Ali, I hear voices at the end of the cemetery. Like, what do you mean? And they're like, the kid's like, I hear a woman calling us. I was like, a woman calling you? And then the other brothers, they come and they're like, yo, Brother Ali, there's a woman at the end of the cemetery. We hear a woman's voice and she's calling us to the edge of the cemetery. And at that moment, I brought everybody together. I'm like, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, recited some of the dhikr. And alhamdulillah, none of that, all that stuff went away. But this stuff is real. And sometimes you may encounter certain things that are scary. And I'm going to end and conclude on this. Dr. Shadi recites the Wird al-Latif and the Ratib of Imam al-Haddad. In that are the du'as for protection that the Prophet ﷺ gave us. If you cannot recite a collection of du'as like the Ratib or Wird al-Latif, maybe it's too long for you guys. At a minimum, before you go to sleep, be in a state of wudu, because wudu is a protection, and recite Ayatul Kursi, recite Amana Rasul, the last 2 verses of Surah Baqarah, they're very short, and recite Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq, and Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. And then blow on your, you could kind of put spittle on your hands, and then blow, and then put it all over your body. It's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ for protection before you go to sleep. If you do that, inshallah, you will be protected. I know countless people that that have been attacked from shayateen, from jinn, while they were sleeping, and this is a major protection. Dr. Sheikh Yasser Qadhi talks about a story how there's a jinn that literally he saw a jinn that came right up to him and stopped and couldn't continue, and he knew it was because he put a force field of dhikr, of light, nur, through the protection of the dua, the dhikr that you do before you go to sleep. So if you do the adhkar and you do the duas, it's a protection. And if you're in a state of wudu, Dr. Shadi talks about having an iron wudu, which is like basically, when you break your wudu, you make your wudu. So you're always in a state of wudu. And if you do that, you're going to be protected. The shayateen, the jinn, they can't really, even if they come, they won't be able to harm you. They won't be able to affect you as much, right? So I don't want to get into the scary things of jinn possessions, but I've met shuyukh that actually specialize in extracting jinns from human beings, right? Exorcism. That's a real thing. The Prophet ﷺ, and there's hadith, and there's on this stuff, and there's scholars that specialize in the science of exorcism. There's a whole separate science of breaking black magic. Black magic is a completely separate study and separate science. The person that focuses on exorcism doesn't necessarily know how to break black magic, and vice versa. And I've met scholars and people from Morocco and from even in America that specialize in these things. So anyways, I hope this wasn't too scary for you. It's kind of a little exciting kind of glimpse into that world, if you will. Obviously, there's a lot more scarier stories. We're not going to say that now, but we'll end inshallah with dua. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. O Allah Ta'ala, please protect us from the shayateen of the jinn and the mankind. O Allah Ta'ala, protect us from our enemies, protect us from everything evil. Keep this fitna away from us. Protect us from black magic, evil eye, and from ever witnessing the shayateen or the jinn. Keep them away from us. Keep the malaika, the angels around us, Ya Allah. Keep each and every single one of us protected inwardly and outwardly. Allahumma ameen rabbil alameen wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.